Hey, everybody, back again outside the square circle. We told you we're going to continue to do this on a consistent basis this year. We're going to try to bang out once a week, twice a week if we can possibly can, but that's what we're going to be here to do. We get the new boxing talk. So we're going to start off. Last time, we didn't really talk about Robert Easter Jr., so we can probably start off about that. And then from there, we'll lean off into the Linares and the
Gesta.
Matthysse fight.
Yep, and then
So I'll make this quick. Robert Easter Jr. Robert Easter Jr. is a really young, exciting fighter. But I feel like if he, just the same way I feel with AB, I feel like if they had a different trainer that can give them a different look, different insight, they can be a lot better than they are. Because I don't feel like they utilize the best skills that they have. Robert East. I mean, I just feel like everybody knows this, that knows boxing, that maybe Robert East Jr. sometimes he gives his size away.
Yeah, yes.
Not fighting tall. I feel like not because his father has done a great job of getting him in shape because he's always in tip top shape. You know what I mean? I don't knock his father. His father does a great job of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he had somebody to help him out, strategy and fighting technique, that'll make him a much more exciting fighter because I want to see, Robert Easter Jr. versus Mikey Garcia or Lomachenko. I want to see those great fights, and more importantly, I want him to be ready for those fights.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see the best him versus those guys because I don't want to be like he could have did better if he didn't do this or that. I want to see the best fights and guys at their absolute best while they're taking these fights. With that being said, Robert Easter Jr. in his last couple of fights, he's won them. I'm not gonna say he's won them, but he's won them with more difficulty than one would think that he had to.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to describe it.
I'm just thinking maybe if he had a different trainer to help him out, maybe that can help him get to that next level. Because the fact of the matter is this, man. Everybody who gets you to the mountain can't get you to the top of the mountain. Some people's job is to get you to the mountain. Now you're seeing this big mountain, you're like, oh shit, this is really high to climb.
Right.
You're gonna need some help or somebody that knows how to get you to the top because they've got people to the top before.
Exactly.
You see what I mean? That's just my mindset on that. What you think?
No, and I share a lot of the same sentiments as you. When you first heard of Robert Easter, you heard a lot of the gym stories, the sparring stories, kind of similar to the way Errol Spence was coming up. You kind of heard, Spence was giving Floyd trouble, and you heard a lot of the same things out of Easter. He's fighting guys bigger than him. He's competing with welterweights, and you're like, okay, so let's see what he has. And when you see a guy with his frame, I pulled up his box rec to get his exact height and weight. So he's 5'11". He's fighting, at 135, and I want to say he comes to the ring generally 10 pounds or so heavier. So he's a big guy for 135. So my thing is, and what you touched on, a lot of people have talked about that, him giving up his size. And to be honest with you, that doesn't bother me as much as his positioning and the way he smothers himself. Because we've seen longer guys like to fight on the inside. Like Paul Williams was an inside fighter. He could fight on the outside when he absolutely had to, but he liked to mix it up on the inside, but he never smothered himself. That was the difference. His arms were so long that he was still able to create angles while he was on the inside. And when you see that when it comes to Robert Easter, he smothers himself so much. So it didn't necessarily bother me that he wants to get on the inside and bang. It's just that he's not positioning himself correctly to let his shots off, and then he winds up smothering himself. And, me and you were talking before we did start to record, and a fight like this, it showed me more holes in his game than it did, positive things. So, and this is something that Max Kellerman will say a lot, kind of like there's those fights where you win now and kind of look good the next one, right? That's a common thing. And with this one, I guess you can kind of chalk it up to another, I just had to win this now and look good the next one. But this one exposed that he couldn't really cut off a ring. And his thing after the fight was that he ran and I'm blanking on his name, Javier Fortuna. He did a good amount of moving, but he was also throwing his hands a ton as well. And he was tagging Easter, and there was a few times where Easter was stunned, and it just came down to him trying to rush things. He really wasn't setting up his shots because he was getting frustrated with that movement. But just like you said, man, I would like to see him with a different trainer. I think Virgil Hunter would be incredible for him to get him to use that length, because I remember what Virgil was starting to do with Amir Khan, where he was starting to get him to stop throwing 5 and 6 punch combinations, focus on the 1-2, use your length. Granted, Amir Khan isn't comparatively as long as Easter is in his division, but if you can envision that style with the Robert Easter just popping out that jab, I mean, with his length, bro, he should be looking like Tommy Hearns down there at 135, if I'm being honest. And that's what, it more so disappoints me than anything, because I see that he has the physical gifts. I see that he has the power. I see that he has a nice crisp jab, but it seems to me that no one really has taught him to use that consistently. Because I refuse to believe that, it's just his, lack of boxing IQ. You have to get your boxing IQ from somewhere. People don't just walk in the ring and magically have a boxing IQ. You have to be taught things over time, you know what I mean? And then eventually your mind starts to work, and you kind of work in that way. But I mean, I have just been disappointed with the Kami fight, with with the Shafikov fight, and then obviously with the Fortuna fight. I expect more out of Robert Easter, and I would never say anything negative about these guys at that elite level, because one, I respect them, and two, I would love to get them on the show, and I would even say a lot of the same things to him and just kind of gauge his mind as to what, because honestly it could be something as simple as he's kind of fallen in love with his power. And then now that he's fighting more elite guys and his power isn't what it used to be, he's still making that adjustment. You understand what I'm saying? So it could be something as simple as that, or it could be kind of how we were talking, where he just needs a new trainer. I feel like it can be vary from something that small to something that big. But that was my thoughts on it, man. I just, at this point, I can't see him beating Lomachenko, Linares, or Mikey Garcia at 135. I mean, and those are really, that's what I think.
All right. Well, we both said our piece on it. Well, we can move right on to the Linares fight. Like I said, I'll be honest with you guys. I was busy. I didn't get a chance to watch that fight, but I did see some highlights from it. So what I can tell you, what I seen was Linares did what Linares do. He got the W. He looked okay to me from the highlights I seen. But what I want to more edge on, because I didn't see it, I just want to say the Lomachenko fight I'm hearing is being brought up, and I want to see that. Listen, Linares, his offensive arsenal is crazy. He has some tools for you. I really want to see him in love. But and I'll say this: I don't necessarily expect Linares to win, but I'm not saying that he can't win. I do expect him to give maybe Lomo one of the toughest fights he's had since he's fought Salido. I really do. I expect him to come in there, be rough, rugged, try to bully. And that's what I expect Linares to come in there and let his hands go, and not be confused in the mix way. When he can't hit a Lomachenko, he's confused, like, okay, now I give up.
Yeah.
I don't think I see that from him. If you know what I mean, I think he continues to try to push forward, even if he's not landing what he thinks he wants to. You know what I mean? That's the type of mindset I think he has. I don't think he has that, okay, well, I'm going to call it today. I can't hit this guy with anything, and he's hitting me. I don't think he has the type of mentality. But we've never seen, I guess, him fight a guy of his caliber, so we don't know what can happen. But I do expect Linares to really challenge Lomachenko in this fight, and I think it's a great fight to be made.
I agree with a lot of your points. The one thing I will say that Linares, well, I guess I'll touch on the fight first. I mean, just like you said, he did what he had to do. I watched the full fight. Gesta or Gesta, I heard it pronounced both ways. He was a tougher guy. Linares was clearly out of his class. I mean, and he did what he does. He took a lot of chances. He was throwing very good, crisp combinations because he realized that Gesta couldn't hurt him. But he just couldn't get Gesta out of there. And I know it seemed he went for it in the later rounds, and it just didn't happen. But kind of moving past that, Just like you said, Loma and him are in the talks for an April or early May fight, and I think it will get done. And my immediate reaction, and I know I caught you off guard when you had texted me that they were in negotiations, and the first thing I thought was that I think Lomachenko's going to stop him late, and I'll get more in detail once we're a week or so away from that fight where we'll really dig in. But my immediate reaction is that Jorge Linares loves to take chances, and that's what makes him exciting to watch. That's what makes him he's so talented, but he's flawed at the same time, which makes for all the entertainment in the world. And we really haven't seen flaws in Lomachenko's game. Even in his loss to Salido, the only thing that kept him from getting that win was that he still had that amateur mindset. He didn't go for the gusto. Orlando Salido took him to a place he had never gone before, so he was swimming in water that he wasn't comfortable with. And Salido just kept his tactics going, but that's the pro game. That's what it was. People, they say it was a dirty fight. He low blowed him. At the end of the day, if the ref ain't stopping you and you have to do what you have to do to win. Salido knew he wasn't as talented as him, but he had to get the W. And with all that being said, I think Jorge Linares' very good counter-punching is going to lead to him having success in that fight, but it's also going to lead him to getting tagged in that fight at the same time. It's going to be, how do you say, I guess the yin and the yang for him. It's going to hurt him just as much as it'll help him, because we really haven't seen a fighter utilize a sustained combination punching tactic against Lomachenko. And the reason we haven't is because he's so hard to hit. But I have a hard time seeing Jorge Linares, just like you said, he's going to get in there, he's going to try and bully him, he's going to try his best to impose his will on him. So he's going to land some good shots. I think he's going to work the body, I think he's going to do some good things. But goddamn is Lomachenko so accurate. He didn't have the biggest punching power, but he is just so accurate, and he wears you down and wears you down. Now, that being said, I don't think it's going to be a quit job. I don't think it's going to be a late TKO, due to Linares quitting. I think the corner's probably going to stop it, or the ref will have to jump in to kind of save Linares from himself. Linares isn't going to have any quit in that fight, and I think it's going to be competitive for the first 4 or 5 rounds. I think once Loma gets in that groove, probably round 4 or 5, he'll take over and really start dominating from there. But it's a good fight nonetheless. Obviously, there's really no one at 130 that it seems that can trouble Lomachenko. So him moving up another weight class, I think, will be good for him. There's guys there, that are going to give him a good test. And then, honestly, the fight that we all want to see, I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we wanted another fight, in that division, is Mikey Garcia and Lomachenko. And I think that's one step closer to that, with Lomachenko getting a fight against a solidified 135-pounder under his belt.
Right now, I just have my fingers crossed, and I'm just waiting, anticipate, and we'll get a chance. Because I don't like to talk about a fight too much, and then, you know what I'm saying?
And then it don't happen.
I'm just going to kind of wait, and I just keep my fingers crossed, and hopefully, if we're all lucky, we get there. But moving on to the next one, Matthysse.
Yeah.
The Matthysse fight. That's again, same thing. I was busy. I only got a chance to see highlights and stuff like that. So that's why I don't cheat you. I don't cheat the fight. I don't go in depth and talk about it like I've seen the whole fight. Yeah, I'm not gonna cheat you guys. I'll tell you the truth. But what I can speak to is what I want to see next from Matthysse. And what I would like to see from Matthysse now is, honestly, man, I don't know if Matthysse can be a champion at 147. He's not gonna be Earl. Even though if he took an Earl fight, he'll definitely test Earl champion, because Earl, he gets hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we said he gets hit, he'll test him. I don't think Matthysse beats Keith Thurman, and the belt is gonna probably wind up in Crawford's hands when they fight Jeff Horn.
Yep.
I don't think he beats Crawford, but I still think that Matthysse is a live dog, and whoever he fights there will be in danger of getting hurt and dropped. So, if you really think of some names of who we can put him with next, I was sitting back thinking about this long and hard, and I said, you know what, it makes make really good sense is if he gets his Danny Garcia rematch.
I wouldn't be mad at
Danny
that.
Garcia gets past Brandon Rios. He's been complaining about that for years. If he gets it, now they had a new weight class.
Yeah.
All over. I don't want to hear any complaints. If he can get his Danny Garcia rematch, if Danny Garcia gets past Brandon Rios, I wouldn't mind seeing that at all.
I wouldn't either. No, I agree. And just touching on the fight, because I did have a chance to watch it, and just like we were talking about before we did start recording, that was the first boring Lucas Matthysse fight that I had seen. But it wasn't for lack of him. And actually, I will tell you this. I saw immense improvement in him from, the Postol fight to this one. And it really was just, it had to do with his temperament. Because in that Victor Postol fight, and this is just based on memory, I remember it being very even for the first 4 or 5 rounds. And then Postol just stuck to that game plan, stood on the outside, moved, mixed up his shots, presented different angles. And we saw Lucas Matthysse get very, very frustrated with that. He wanted Victor Postol to sit and stand in front of him and trade. It was clear that Postol had, a different idea. And we saw Kiram try to do the same exact thing. And what I saw in Lucas Matthysse was him being more patient, him working the body a little bit more, and not getting frustrated. Now, that being said, Kiram isn't the fighter that Victor Postol was. Postol had has a lot more, as Roy Jones says, a lot more tools in the toolbox. But he did try to utilize a very similar game plan, and I saw something in Lucas Matthysse that we haven't necessarily seen before, because we saw him get frustrated with Danny Garcia as well. His eye swelling certainly didn't help him, but he started rushing his shots. He stopped setting them up and started telegraphing stuff, and that's when Danny Garcia really took over. So I did see improvement there. Moving forward, I think that's a brilliant fight, and I think for 2 reasons. Because one, Danny Garcia is going to beat Brandon Rios. That style's made for him. He'll probably knock him out, mid to late rounds. And that's going to keep Danny Garcia busy. It's a safer fight for Danny Garcia. I know that sounds funny because it kind of contradicts what you said. Anytime anyone's in the ring with Lucas Matthysse, you're in danger of getting knocked the hell out. He can just flat out crack. But he's already beat him before. So, the odds are going to be a little bit more in his favor going into that fight. Actually, Danny might have been the underdog on that now that I'm thinking. But obviously, I think he'll be favored on the money line this time around. And it'll keep him busy. It'll give him a legit stake to, fight a Sean Porter, to fight, a Thurman rematch. So I think that's a very, very good logical fight for him. He did call out Manny Pacquiao's name. And to be honest with you, I don't want to see it just because it's time for Manny to retire. It's time for Manny to retire. I mean, even though I thought he beat Horn, I had it 8-4, 9-3. I thought it was an easy call. That being said, he still didn't look like himself. Jeff Horn, used his size, then bullied him a little bit. Was able to get on the inside, and it's clear.
The old Manny Pacquiao would have finished him, man.
The old Manny Pacquiao, all it would have been was a David Diaz rematch. To be honest with you, he would have did the same exact thing that he did to David Diaz, but it's clear he lost a step. He didn't have the same stamina. He clearly has power because he was able to hurt the bigger guy in Jeff Horn, but he didn't have it. He didn't have the stamina. He didn't have the work rate anymore, and that just happens in old age. His style didn't age well. I'm actually surprised he fought as well as he has the last few years. Granted, he's changed his style a little bit, but just because his age, he's been in so many wars and things. But I definitely don't want to see that. I didn't even think of the Danny Garcia fight. Actually, the fight that I thought that I would love to see would be him fighting the winner of Devin Alexander and Victor Ortiz. And I want to say, did we talk about that last week? Or I know that was
we
a talk.
About it last week.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's a fight that I feel is very logical as well, because I'm at the point where a lot of these guys, they need to be fighting in win or retire type matches.
Yeah, and that's why I said that about, I think, Lamont Peterson versus Andre Boto. It's like, yo, you two fight each other, whoever loses, just say, okay, I had a great career, made a lot of money, and then the next one we go on.
Right, and I feel the same way. I feel the same way about not necessarily from Devin Alexander's side, But if Victor Ortiz didn't win that fight, it's really time to, not that I'm saying I'm expecting him to win, but it's like you keep trying these comeback trails and it just ain't working. So it's obvious the universe is telling you something. But now if Devin Alexander loses, depending on the fashion he loses, he can still have a little bit of a comeback. He's gone through that drug thing. So I'd be willing to kind of, mentally, be ready for him to have another go at it. But I think Lucas versus the winner of that can be very good moving forward. Him versus, even Errol Spence in June. Why the hell not? I mean, just like you said, at the very least, that would test. Errol Spence is probably going to win, but it's going to test his chin. We'll see what he's really made of, because just like you said, he's there to be hit. It's not like he's not hard to. Lamont Peterson hit him with some really, really good shots. We saw Kell Brook hit him with some really good shots. And Errol, I still think Errol is the most talented at 147, but that's the one thing that, because it's either one of two things. If you're not going to have a defense, you better have a damn good chin like Triple G, or you better start tightening up that defense so you don't get knocked out. And that's a fight that we're going to be able to see what he's made of from that standpoint.
Hey, I'm not opposed to that fight at all.
No, and then, the one fight, and I just kind of want to go on a rant, and I feel like, if you have anything else to say afterwards, by all means, or we can just finish it, but, I've been really upset that we haven't had any televised, or the tournament that, that Cruiserweight tournament hasn't been televised in America, because from everything that I'm hearing, and I've had a chance to see Alexander Usyk fight before, and I've seen highlights from him in this tournament, and he's clearly an incredible fighter. This guy can flat out fight, but I've yet to see any of these live, and I'd love to see it. I've been looking online for streams. I can't find anything, and it's like, throw me a bone here. They're putting together, you know what I mean, and I'm not that knowledgeable on Cruiserweight just because it doesn't get that much airtime. And, the times that I've tried to tune in, they're fighting in Russia, they're fighting in China, they're fighting in, Kazakhstan or wherever. I'm just throwing out countries, not literally, and we're not getting streams here at all. And that upsets me because I'm hearing so many people tell me, you're boxing fans, like, you're missing out on this tournament, these guys can fight. They're telling me that Usyk is one of the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport, that he could go up and maybe beat a Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua. And when I hear things like that, I'm like, I have to tune into this damn dude. And, there's no chance for me because they're not airing it in America at all. And I'm actually very disappointed in Showtime as well as HBO. Not that any of their representatives, listen to us, but I just wanted to vent that out there because with the level of boxing that he boxes at, with the level of boxing that, some of these dudes that I'm hearing at Cruiserweight, they deserve better, especially from the American audience. Throw these guys on HBO, throw these guys on Showtime. Even put them on like one of the Mexican channels, Unimas or Telemundo. Give us something. You know what I mean? Like, as long as I'm able to watch it, I don't care what the hell channel it's on. But I did just want to say that because I know I'm missing out on great boxing, and me being, such a big boxing fan, it would be like a basketball fan missing part of the, the March Madness tournament because they didn't televise the East Coast teams or something. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's how I feel right now. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I hope that if another, tournament like this happens, or at least the final, at least maybe they can give us the final, because Usyk, I know he has one more fight, I believe, before he gets to the final. Hopefully they can televise that, because I definitely want to see him live and in action from the highlights and the replays that I've seen. He can flat out fight, man. He's an awesome fighter.
Well, the only thing I can add is, I think we're going to add another member to the team. Steven, he's an old guy. He's with us at Modern Boxing. He's going to be taking over the Facebook page and looking out for him. Other than that, thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, remember, like, subscribe, share. Definitely like us on Facebook. I'm going to throw in our Facebook as well as our Instagram. I currently run the Instagram. Dennis currently runs the Facebook. We try to do our best, to keep up with everything. That's why we're adding Steven to the team, to get more, just output on the Facebook side of things. And you guys can always message us as well if you guys want us to talk about different topics. Maybe we missed something. Maybe there's something that you guys want us to touch on that we haven't. We're definitely open to that. But thanks for tuning in, guys.